place that lets you know you're not the only nerdy true believer who's around. The comic book store, 'cause that's where the books live, but it's also much more. It's the heart of the art form that we all adore. Your friendly neighborhood comic book store. Out among the stacks of new releases, browsing with your future new best friends. You're gonna find a book you'll love to pieces. The girl behind the counter recommends dollar books and shelves of graphic novels. Titles old and new, you'll find them all. With action figures, board games, toys, and models to add to your new comic Wednesday haul. The comic book store, 'cause that's where the books live, but it's also much more. It's the heart of the art form that we all adore. Your friendly neighborhood comic book store.
Yes, indeed. You're back in the comic book store called Source Material Live. I'm your substitute host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, I have all the things set up to capture my guest sound. So this time, all of his wonderful musings and ideas and sayings will be captured for your listening pleasure. I swears it. I checked it before the show started. Ladies...
Is this thing on? Hello?
Yes. That voice you hear, those dulcet tones, belong to the one and only from Chris's on Infinite Earths and Cosmic Treadmills and whatnot. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Sheehan. How you doing, sir?
Hey, how are you? So happy to be back. And it is a real shame about that last episode. That one, that was probably one of the funnest times I've had recording in quite some time. I wish that we were able to capture that, because that was a blast.
Well, we'll always have the memories.
We will. It'll be a nice personal thing between us. In 20 years, we'll catch each other's glances and be like, remember Warrior Nun? It'll be really good times.
Do you remember erect nipples? I remember erect nipples.
How could I forget?
Well, there's no erect nipples on this show, unfortunately. Tonight's topic is the 2019 miniseries, 12 issues, 10 issues rather. Avengers.
Felt like 12.
Yeah, really. Avengers, No Road Home by Mark Waid, Al Ewing, Paco Medina, Jim Zub, Sean Izaskis, Yasmin Putri, and Carlo Barbary.
And about 45 editors.
Yeah, really. The team that brought you Avengers No Surrender reunite for an all-new weekly Avengers adventure. Night has fallen across the universe. Now 7 Avengers and 1 new addition journey forth to bring back the light. But when the threat they face has destroyed even the gods, will anyone make it home? This is Avengers No Road Home. Sorry, so let me first ask you, this was written by Mark Waid and Al Ewing, among others, and you've got some opinions on these fellas. Tell me first what your thoughts are on Mark Waid, and then we'll jump into Al Ewing.
Mark Waid, the thing about Mark Waid is at different points in his career, he's been like one of my very favorite writers. I loved his work. I loved most of his DC work, actually. When he worked on The Flash, it was wonderful stuff. Fantastic Four around the turn of the century was a blast with Mike Wieringo. This is a different Mark Waid. I don't know if this is like someone wearing a Mark Waid suit, but this does not remind me of the good old days of Mark Waid here. And I do know that he's kind of cantankerous and he's a bit of a curmudgeon these days. But wow, this is nothing like the Mark Waid. If you would have said we're going to read a Mark Waid story without telling me which one, I would have been super excited. But then finding out it was this, and even so, I've never read this because this is kind of part and parcel why I stopped reading Marvel Comics for a little while. But after reading it, wow. Yeah, this wasn't great. And
Is it that it's too big? It's too too comic booky, because that was the feeling that I got. This was to me kind of like a less confusing Darkseid War.
This was a 10-part story that only needed about 2 or 3. There was no the reason why this was 10 parts because they're like, hey, we did a weekly last year, let's do another weekly. And you can't do a 3-issue weekly because then it'll be done too quick. I don't know. This felt like a weekly that needed a story rather than a story that needed a weekly, and it was just such a Dagwood sandwich of just like, okay, are we getting introspection? Are we getting action? Are we getting gods? I mean, it just didn't. It felt like a story that just didn't need to be told. Which, I mean, is silly to say when it's comics, because what stories absolutely need to be told in comics, but this one especially. Like, wow, and the fact that it took me several running starts to get through this. It was just like, it's like, wow, I was looking and I'm like, there are still 100 pages left. How are there still 100 pages left?
So I had
not great.
A couple of thoughts here. When I saw this in the bookstore, you have to understand, I had a gift card to the comic book store. The comic book store. I had a gift card. And that's where I ended up with Pride of Baghdad. Mm-hmm. And, I try. Here's the thing. Because I don't read the weekly solicits, I buy the trades. I didn't want to buy something in the middle of another series.
Oh, of course.
I like as much standalone as I can find. That's how I ended up with Pride of Baghdad. Mm-hmm. I saw this one, and I saw, it was a 10-issue limited series. Okay, then I'm not going to be in the middle of somebody's run, I guess.
Kinda.
Yeah, kinda. It's an encapsulated story. It begins with 1, it ends with 10. There aren't tie-in issues. Okay, cool. The second thing I noticed on this was, if you look at the trade paperback...
Oh, the blurb. Is it the blurb? Are we going to the blurb?
Not yet. Hold your horses.
Oh.
We'll get there. On the cover, you have all of these different Avengers falling into space, and big and brightest and right up front is Hercules. And I'll tell you, I don't get enough Hercules in my life. I used to love him as part of the Avengers back when I was reading it in the late 80s, early 90s. And I would read a lot of back issues where he was a big part of the team. I don't remember if he was ever part of any iteration of the West Coast Avengers, but he was
part of the Champions, and he got around. Yeah,
I loved Hercules. I thought he was great. And then if you turn it over, well, what do you know? Who do you find? You find Conan the Barbarian, and I loves me some Conan. So I was like, all right, I got to get this book. And now, having had read it, okay, now I'll read you the blurb. Marvel Comics in their purest form.
Ooh, and this comes to us from the bastions of comic book journalism. So long as you can put that journalism in a clickbaity top 10 list, Newsarama.
Yes, indeed.
Ooh. Color me just it's so excited.
If the implication is that Marvel in its purest form is drawn out,
long,
then sure, I get it.
Mischaracterized, it's great stuff.
Marvel used to tell very relatable stories. Yeah, good. I was going to go with relatable. Marvel used to tell very relatable stories. And sure, the Jim Lee era, you had your cosmic Thanos type stories. I wish we had Al Sedano here. He could tell us all about Thanos and Warlock and all of that.
Oh, the Infinity War, the Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity Crusade, all that stuff. Infinity Abyss, yeah.
There were yes, the Infinity Sandwich. I guess what I'm saying is Marvel definitely had its moments where it was cosmic and it had its weirdo characters like the Living Tribunal and all of that. But it also told very at-home, relatable, personal, human stories.
Absolutely.
And so when I see Marvel in their purest form, this is one of those deals where it was like, well, here's a germ of an idea. What if there were no sunlight and the gods were all dead? Okay,
that's Marvel Comics in a nutshell, right?
Yeah, I'm like, that's one of those publishing crossovers. That's something big enough for that. For this 10-issue limited series, I was like, I don't know. I gave it a shot. I read it.
But it did get those dickheads at Newsarama the cover, so there you go.
Good for them. Mm-hmm. All right, so that's Mark Waid. Mark Waid sounds like he's better when he's telling the more down-to-earth personal stories than these cosmic, big-ass, ridiculous stories. What about Al Ewing? What's your beef with him?
Well, one more thing about Waid, though. I feel like every time I read anything of Mark Waid since probably since the New 52, which he's been like basically Marvel ever since then, it seems to me like he's writing with like this giant chip on his shoulder. Like there's an anger, there's a petulance, there's a real just thumbing his nose at a certain aspect of the fandom. And this could just be me projecting.
Yeah, I'm wondering where are you getting that from? Like, explain that.
Well, because, I mean, there was a lightness to his work before. It celebrated comics in their purest form. It celebrated history. It celebrated lore. It added to history in a way that didn't tear down the past. Now it just feels like he's all about doing the old Dinty Moore thing, just putting the thumbprint on stuff. And just it feels like it's just cashing checks now. And I mean, this is me talking completely out of my ass here. I've never met Mark Waid. For all I know, he's a delightful human being. But the stories that he's been telling for the past, say, decade or so, they just feel angry. They feel unhappy. And again, this could be projection. It just feels like he's like in a different phase of his writing career than he was when I was able to enjoy his work and just when I fell in love with his work, I should say, because he was definitely a top 5 writer for me back in the day.
It's interesting you say that, because I feel like at least there's a third of this book that deals with the relationship between Hawkeye and the Hulk. Mm-hmm. After the Hawkeye put an arrow into Bruce Banner's head and murdered him.
Yes.
Murder! And I say it that way because there are some within the Radulich and Broadcasting family, Ronnie Adams, who don't qualify what Hawkeye did as murder since they had worked it out ahead of time. And it's like, no, murder is still murder. When you take someone's life, it's still murder.
They're still dead, yeah.
Yeah. Even if they agree, even if he asked you to do it. If you, Chris Sheehan, say, Mark Radulich, I want you to shoot me in the head. Yes, we agreed upon it. It's still murder.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got that off my chest.
But on the other, across the table, we have Al Ewing, who you might know best as the guy who blocked you on Twitter without ever talking to you.
Hang on, before you get into Al Ewing, sure. Where I was going with this was, I see the anger that you're talking about and how he handled the Hulk and Hawkeye. Like, I think he thought he was handling it with a deft hand, and
no.
A deft hand holding a heavy hammer. I think that's where the anger comes out for me. But we can talk about that in a little bit. Let's talk about Al Ewing.
We'll work through it. Al Ewing, maybe like a year or two ago, it went around that when he took over Immortal Hulk, I think it was, people discovered him. And they're like, oh, there's this guy writing this book that I enjoy. And so they look him up on Twitter, only to find out that he blocked them. People like you and me, nobodies, who he just blocked. He used blockchains and all this sort of stuff to block people. And, I mean, hell, do whatever the hell you want to do with your social media. I could give a shit. But just me and you here, you and I, we are content creators, correct? We put out content for people to enjoy, to hate, to engage with, whatever. Quality, I mean, wheels within wheels. Quality is subjective. You could think what we do is great. You could think what we do is crap. You could just not have an opinion on what we do. But prolificity is undeniable. And you and I, we put out a lot of stuff. I mean, we put out stuff almost every day. There's audio with our voices on it. And the fact that as a creator of content, and a struggling one, because it's hard to get noticed, the thought that somebody may discover the Cosmic Treadmill, may discover one of my solo shows, may discover me here on this show, may discover the blog, and then they're like, oh, I like this guy, or oh, I hate this guy, and I want to find out more about him, or I want to just tell him to go to hell. And they come onto Twitter, or they come onto Facebook, or they come onto whatever social media platform, and they find me and see that I've blocked them without ever talking to them. what a dick move. What kind of a pussy does that? It's like
a very insecure one.
Right? I mean, I would love to have people reach out to me. I mean, and especially if they discovered me from something I'd written or something that I had produced. I mean, that's got to be a fantastic feeling. But this dickhead used blockchains to block a bunch of people, sight unseen, word unspoken. I don't get that as a creator of content, as an entertainer, as someone who is trying to put out a product. And for that reason, and, you know, I talked about Mark Waid's chip on his shoulder. I have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder when it comes to this asshole, because that's just not something you do to your fans. I don't know what it is about I mean, two of the things that I love most, comic books and pro wrestling, seem to have people in the business that are going out of their way to put themselves out of business. And I don't understand why. It's like, hey, this person voted for someone I didn't like. Who the fuck cares? They're still buying your book. They're still giving you money. They're still putting food on your plate. What does it matter that? And I think Ewing's British, so you couldn't vote anyway, dude. It's like, it's just such a bitch move to do that, and it bothers me, and it still bothers me clearly. And I would never support a book by someone who did that with my own money.
So your issue with him is what he's done as far as blocking people, not with what he's written.
His writing ain't great. Is another part of it. Did
you read The Immortal Hulk at all?
I read the first couple of issues of it. Did not care for it, which puts me in a minority. I understand, but this was before I even knew about the whole, the whole whatever.
They were going for like a horror motif with the Hulk. Yeah, because I read the first trade and I was like, eh.
That's about it. And I mean, Hulk. I mean, up until he took over Hulk, I have a full run of Hulk going back to around my birth. So that's 40 years of Hulk that I have. And yeah, I stopped at that point, which that didn't happen very often to me. I didn't stop full runs until just recently. So he was the cause. And because I just don't, if you are a spectacular writer, a once in a generation writer, and you want to start being a dickhead on social media, then okay, whatever. But if you're a run of the mill, average at best writer, no, get over yourself.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, it's and I mean, I probably take this a little too personally because I do struggle with social media. I do struggle with getting my stuff out there. And I would love to have 1/1000th of the engagement where someone would be like, hey, I read that. It was great. Or, hey, I read that. It sucked. Cool. At least you read it.
Right.
You read it and you cared enough to reach out to me. As a struggling content creator, that is basically, your money shot. That's what you do it for.
I think this is what people do when they're secure in their profession and they have a vantage point to look down on others. I think they take engagement with the fans for granted.
Oh yeah,
I think many of them do, and I think it's easy for them. Jim Cornette's a really good example of this. He's kind of like my go-to because, and he even said, he was like, it's not hard for me to block people. I have millions of listeners to my podcast. I have thousands of people buying from my store. I don't need to engage with you, and if I don't like your opinion or you said something that mildly irritated me, you're blocked. Because he can afford to block people. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the same thing with Al Ewing, where it's like, well, I'm already successful in my profession. What do I need to be? Why do I need to be taken down any kind of a notch by anybody else? None of these people have reached these. It isn't like he's being. He blocked Mark Waid.
No, but the thing of it is here, if I came out and I said, "Hey, Al Ewing, you're a piece of shit," and then he blocked me, I deserve it. Or, "Hey, Al Ewing, I have this opinion
you don't." It's the preemptive blocking you have a problem with.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, if someone came over to me and said, go F yourself, I don't think I'd block them the first time, but I mean, if they kept doing it, I'd probably block them. And I mean, there's a reason
Hey,
why you
go
block
fuck
people.
yourself. Well, where are we going with this?
Okay, hum me a few bars here. Let me see if I'm going to hit block. But the preemptive thing, that to me is a bitch move.
Okay.
And
I mean, I don't disagree. And to go back to the Jim Cornette thing, he at least waits to see if someone's mildly irritated him before he blocks people.
yeah, the
he isn't just go-
blockchains they're just the silliest thing. And it's like, I don't even know how they work, but it's like if you follow a certain person, that you're blocked. If you retweeted a certain person, you're blocked. It's like the machinations that go into this just to keep you in your pearly safe echo chamber. It's so pathetic. And if that's the lengths you're going to go to, maybe just close down the goddamn Twitter.
Yeah, I don't really see the point in having Twitter if you're not wanting to engage with people. I mean, I don't have an Instagram for that reason. I don't have an Instagram because I think it's for girls. But I have Facebook and I have Twitter, and that's where I'm willing to engage. Like, there are certain social media things that are out there that people are like, oh, you should get on TikTok. I'm like, I don't want to be on TikTok. I don't want to engage with people that way. I'm not doing videos of me dancing. All right, let's talk about the book. So,
Sure.
the plot of the book, such as it is, the gods have all been killed, and night and daylight has been stolen. And as it turns, and so the Avengers that are gathered to take on this, we have Hercules, and he's our main hero in this because it's the Olympian gods that have been massacred. We have Rocket Raccoon, who when we find him, we have a misunderstanding in a hardware store, was what happened there. We have Hawkeye, who, as we said before, not that long ago, put an arrow in Bruce Banner's head. We have the Scarlet Witch. We have the Vision, who is dying. He has some sort of system malfunction. Monica Rambeau's Spectrum. So she's one of the Captain Marvels that have been out there. We have Adam Brashear, who is the Blue Marvel. Tony Ho, we have the Hulk. And then finally we have Voyager, also known as Vani Gast. Gast. Okay, so our story begins. We have... let me tell you how I had to reframe my thinking about this book. Mm-hmm. Okay? And see if you... I don't know how much video games you play.
A bunch.
Okay. Did this not read like a video game plot? Where it was like cutscene, and then you fight the enemy. And you defeat the boss.
Yes.
And then there's more. Then there's another cutscene. Like
they even have the unbeatable bosses in here too. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Like this felt to me like a Final Fantasy game.
Yep.
So you have this is cut into like 4 parts. Part 1 is gathering up the team from disparate places. Part 2 is the reveal of the enemy, who is the Queen of the Night, who this kind of comes across like Thor Ragnarok, which I know you never saw, but basically Hela was imprisoned by Odin, and through some machination or another, and I don't remember how. I honestly don't remember. I think because Odin had gotten sent away by Loki and was weakened, and somehow she escaped her prison. Something similar here, where Zeus had imprisoned her, and she escaped, and so she's taking revenge. And because she's the Queen of Night, she takes revenge by robbing the universe of sunlight somehow and killing all the gods. So that's part 2. Part 3 is the MacGuffin chase. There are these
Shards.
Shards, yes. There were these various shards that give her power somehow, and they're in various places. And so the team breaks up. One team goes one way to chase one shard. One team goes to another place to chase. And then eventually the Scarlet Witch ends up with Conan, randomly. Mm-hmm. And then there's the final fight. That's the book in a nutshell.
Yep, that needed 260 pages, right?
Yeah, well, 4 parts. I want to let's take these in parts here.
Sure.
As far as the groupings. So you have the one group of Rocket, Hulk, and Hawkeye who end up in the Nightmare universe with Nightmare, who has lost his powers, and that's where one of the shards is, and one of the Queen of the Night's like henchmen is marching on the Nightmare universe, and so you have this sort of loose team of Nightmare, Hulk, Hawkeye, and Rocket Raccoon that are banding together to stop the Nightmare universe from being trampled by this Night Army.
Mm-hmm.
That about right?
Yep.
Okay. So the big trick here, the thing that I want to talk about, because all of that stuff is like, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. It's very comic booky. It's the kind of thing that people who don't read comic books hear and their eyes glaze over and cross and fall over backwards.
I do read comics and my eyes glazed over when I heard this, or when I read this.
Fair enough. There's a lot of back and forth between. Well, first of all, this was Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye, which if you haven't seen the Avengers movies, and I know you haven't, Jeremy Renner in the middle of Age of Ultron basically breaks the fourth wall and says out loud, "I'm fighting an army of robots with a bow and arrow," or something along those lines. But like,
and did you know that Batman puts little kids into danger, and that Superman is just Clark Kent wearing glasses? I mean, I hate that shit.
oh, do tell.
When you pull the obvious stuff out. Me and Reggie were covering the Young Animal books over at Weird Science, and they're on the Cosmic Treadmill feed too. And one of the books was Mother Panic, which was a book we hated at first and we grew to really appreciate. But there was a story in the middle of that called Milk Wars, which was a whole big crossover with Young Animal. And I'm taking a very long time to get to my point here, but she met Batman, who was like under mind control because of the Milkman man, and he was a priest, and it was very dumb. But she makes this comment that he keeps putting kids into danger, which, you know, I'm sure like the edgy 17-year-old kids who read this are like, yeah, right on, you pointed that out. But it's like, you have to. It's like one of those things that the readers should know, but the people in the book maybe shouldn't, because once they address something like that, there's really no going back. You have Hawkeye saying, "I'm using a bow and arrow against, you know, war machines here," and it's like, okay, well now what? You've just said what you're doing. It's just you can't walk it back now.
Right.
You made the observation that we make because it's silly and it's comics, and it's like, well, look at this guy kicking ass with a bow, and all he's got is a bow and arrow.
Well, they spent a lot of time in the sections dealing with Hulk and Hawkeye of Hawkeye having this inner monologue about how useless he is.
Oh, of course. And then we have Rocket Raccoon in one of his meme-worthy captions calling him like, what do you call him, like stick and pointy stick god or some shit.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I get
Captain
that we're
Pointy
all way
Stick,
too
I think,
cool.
is what it was.
Yeah, Captain Pointy Stick. I know that we're all too cool for classic comics nowadays, but get out of here with this shit.
But that was the thing. Like, you know, if you actually go back and read the Avengers, Hawkeye's, when he wasn't Giant Man or
Goliath,
you know, Hawkeye with the bow and arrow, the unpowered Avengers always were like leaders or hearts of the team.
Yep.
You know, when everybody else who was powered but had no ability to sort of refine that power and point it in a direction that made sense, there was the unpowered guys, you know, like even like Captain America, who had, you know, who was more powered than the average person but wasn't exactly Iron Man, but he lent leadership and gravitas to the team. And that's what Hawkeye did, especially when he was leading the West Coast Avengers. It was like they were willing to follow, as he was written, they were willing to follow him into hell because he had confidence. And we're in 2020 with this guy, and he's now, like, questioning himself. Like, you killed the Hulk. Stop questioning Stop questioning what you lend to this team. It's been proven. I mean, it's a weird take on that character. I'll give you a second to respond to that.
It's a very 2020 look at it. I mean, every time if every time there was snark and sass in this book, I rolled my eyes, I would have fallen out of my chair because it's just like
you'd have given yourself vertigo.
Oh God, I mean, this is like a afterbirth of Bendis. You know, like Bendis gave birth to this shit, and it's still floating, and it's we just don't have heroes the way they used to be written, especially here at Marvel. I haven't read much of the DC stuff of late, so it very well might be there as well. But it's like you can picture an interview with a Marvel writer, and it's like, okay, have you ever read a Marvel comic before? Well, no. And well, have you seen Clerks? Well, yeah, 5 times. Oh, great, we got 5 books for you.
There was a comment that was made by Jay of Red Letter Media about. And this is when they were reviewing, I think it was Man of Steel. And, you know, infamously, Man of Steel has an ending where there's this big, epic fight scene between Zod and Superman that destroys most of Metropolis. And the commentary about it from movie viewers and critics alike was, Superman saves nobody in this movie. It's just a celebration of wreckage. And more to the point, and this is what I'm getting at, they, in an attempt to change the viewpoint of the modern moviegoer on Superman, and really change Superman so that it meets modern motifs and expectations, they killed Superman. And now kids don't have Superman to look up to. And I was thinking about that
It's
because,
a good take.
yeah, because like when we were kids, and you and I are around the same age, but when we were kids, we had not just Superman, but we had various idyllic heroes. You know,
Sure.
we had Indiana Jones. We
had Hulk Hogan.
We had Hulk Hogan. We had Star Wars. And I look around, and unless you had a kid that was like, you know, embedded in watching the Marvel movies, which my kids were born a little late for that. I started having kids in 2011. So they've seen some of the Marvel movies, but not all of them. Other than the Marvel movies, what do kids have to look up to right now? Like, what heroes can they point to where there's a large, like, cultural experience where they can go, that hero, you know, whether it's a movie or a television show or a comic book, what can they point to? Because in the 80s, we had tons.
Oh,
Everywhere
sure.
you looked was an idyllic superhero you could look up to.
Yeah, we're all about tearing it down nowadays. It's
Yeah, it's really sad.
It is very, you know, and I haven't really thought about it that way, but it is very, very sad. Yeah, I think it's just it's almost like we have like this embarrassment of riches when it comes to both access and ability to create. Where it's like, it feels like nowadays anybody could write comics. Anybody could do this because clearly, I mean, the quality control is just not there. And for, you know, Michael Jordan, you know, all these larger than life characters that you could look up to. I mean, you could find them on social media now. You can find out what they said 15 years ago in an article. We have too much access. We have too much just.
There's too much really Wizard of Oz looking behind the curtain. You know,
yeah, we know how the
ordinary
sausage
man
is
from
made.
Kansas.
Yeah,
just an ordinary man from Kansas. But going back to No Road Home to kind of link it all back, I hate the fact that the take on Hawkeye in this particular book is his constant second guessing himself, which then bleeds into the Hulk in him. Because I mean, and I don't remember what story this was. It might have been. It was like the prelude, I think, to Civil War II.
I don't remember either. Was Civil War II, was that before or after Secret Wars? That was 2014, right?
Yeah, something like that. Without looking it up, I can't tell you. But in any case, you have the situation where there are bones here I think you can work with. I think pairing up the Hulk, who's been murdered by Hawkeye, and they even say it in the book. He was just like, you know, instead of taking him to a psychiatrist, you just gave in and shot him in the head. And so I think playing on the guilt of that and struggling with, oh, Jesus, did I do the right thing? You know, the constant need to treat the Hulk like he's an atomic bomb which then makes everything you do to him seem okay, and realizing there's a person underneath there and it's not a bomb. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot there. It's weird that you did it in this book.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like I don't know if Avengers No Road Home was the right place to examine the relationship between the Hulk's murderer and the Hulk.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But they do, and it's like only a couple of panels, because the rest of it is then the Hulk just fucking with Hawkeye. You know, yeah. Basically it's just like, I'm mad at you for murdering me. Seems like a silly thing to say out loud, but that's basically what he says. And he's like, and at some point I'm going to get you back for it. And which reminds me of like a Family Guy bit where, you know, where Stewie says to Brian, okay, to get even, I'll let you hit me once. He's like, okay, I will, but you'll never see it coming. And then he keeps like making him flinch.
Yeah.
What did you think of the Hulk Hawkeye stuff?
I thought they left a lot of money on the table. I thought it was it under delivered, because like you said, it was like the big thing was like one page of 4 panels, and it just felt like it didn't come. It doesn't feel like one of them killed the other. I mean, there should be a little bit more animus there. There should be.
They almost need their own book, right? They needed their own adventure.
Because you have, I mean, the Hulk here, he's acting very, very aloof, which I get, but I think that aloofness should have maybe come down when he was with Hawkeye, being like, you know, dude, you killed me. You know, maybe shed the aloofness, shed the, you know, the faux badass, you know, pat him on the back sort of thing. Maybe just have the heart-to-heart. What would it have hurt? I think it would have really. It would have been a hell of a writing exercise for the team we had in place here, but what would it have hurt to have an actual character moment between two characters who've known each other for 60, 70 years now? I mean, let's let them do it here. But instead we get like this like really short, passive-aggressive, sarcastic, sassy back and forth. It just didn't work for me, and I felt like it could have been so much more. And that's actually a big part of this entire story. It's like there were bits here where it kind of pulled me in, but then it was just like it was like someone engaged the parking brake when you were at like 80 miles an hour, just like dead stop, and just and then like the Queen of the Night would come in. It's like, okay, can we just get back to the good stuff here?
All right, it's time to fight the boss.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Did you save first? Come on.
And so the big thing here is that he makes a deal with Nightmare, and I guess he gets like Nightmare powers. I don't know. At some point, he's on a horse with a sword, and he's really powerful in the Nightmare universe. And so they beat up the one henchman that's sent by the Queen of the Night, and they're able to get the shard. So let's put that aside. Let's move on to now. The rest of the team is together, but then they get broken up as well. And the big thing here is that the Queen of Night pokes his Scarlet Witch's eyes out. Mm-hmm. And now whatever Scarlet Witch can see, the Queen of Night sees. And at some point, and maybe you can explain it to me, because there are parts of this book where I just got Darkseid War, Baby Darkseid, itis, and I was like, whatever, and I start like scan reading. But Scarlet Witch is separated from the other Avengers group, and she ends up in Conan world. Yeah. How did that happen exactly?
I was going to ask you that same question, because I think we used a very similar method of reading for some of this, because there were bits of this where it felt like, okay, let's just get to the next scene. This is me, not the book. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I do remember with where I think it was Photon said that, you know, whatever you see, she sees, and all that good stuff. But then all of a sudden she's in, what is it? Is it Samaria? Is that a real place?
Let's go with it.
Okay, wherever the hell Conan lives. But yeah, she was just there, and that was another scene that kind of like the Hulk and Hawkeye one. When you had Wanda and Conan there, I felt like that could have been an awesome scene, and it wasn't.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, that's another one where I wish Scarlet Witch and Conan had their own book.
Yeah.
That's a fun little duo there. And for people listening to this, like, oh, God, these two get together and all they do is complain about comics. This I liked. This was like the one part of the book I really dug. It was fairly straightforward. They started in one place, they had to get to another. And you had an odd pairing of the Dame, Scarlet Witch.
A blind woman and the Barbarian. Yeah.
Right. Perfect. Shoot it.
I don't, because I was reading the the little rejoinder pages that Marvel puts into their books where, you have the first page where there's text and it catches you up on stuff here. And they talked about the introduction of Conan. And I don't know much about Conan, but I love the fact, I love the concept of everything existing in a shared universe. I'm a huge fan of lore. I'm a huge fan of just making everything fit. I mean, back when, and I wasn't around for this, but even, retroactively, when the Charlton heroes were absorbed into DC and they actually became part of the DC universe. Love that kind of thing. When Marvel took Malibu and the Ultraverse and didn't put them into their universe, I was, bummed out because I wanted everybody to be together. And so, when Angela comes over from the Spawn books and she's part of the universe, and Conan comes over and he's part of the universe, and goddamn, if they ever finish Marvel Man or Miracle Man, whatever they're calling him, if they actually bring him in, I mean, I would be all over that. But reading that rejoinder page and the logic behind putting Conan in here, they're like, well, last year we did a weekly book and we needed something big, so we brought someone back to life. This year we have something, so we're going to put Conan in here. It's like the story didn't demand it. The story didn't necessitate it. It's just we're doing this to pop you. And I that kind of bothered me. I thought it should have been a little bit more organic than that. But it just reminds me of the bag of tricks that the creatively bereft are digging in right now, where it's we talked about this, or I complained about this off the air. In our Twitter chat, but I was talking about Bendis and his bag of tricks, and his tricks are you kill someone, you bring someone back, or you unmask them. Lather, rinse, repeat. That's all you do, and that is just comics now. It's like we just can't tell a good story anymore. It has to be, well, we told a story and this person died, or we told the story and this person who died last time came back. Or this time this person got unmasked. It bothers me that there was it felt so inorganic that Conan was here. It's just out of nowhere. It's oh, there's Conan. Okay.
Right. Like a Scooby-Doo mystery, and guest starring Batman or the Globetrotters or something.
It's oh, that guy got unmasked. Okay.
Yeah. So Conan and Scarlet Witch go on their adventure, and that's fun. That's actually the best part of the book, I think.
For sure.
They eventually regroup with Hercules and the rest of the crew, Vision. Interestingly, here's where everyone begins with the book. Hawkeye is doubting his purpose with the Avengers. The Scarlet Witch, I'm not really sure. Scarlet Witch is blinded. She loses her sight. The Vision is dying. And then the other one who's also having doubts. So we have two characters who are unsure of their place within the Avengers. One is not powered, it just, he's bow and arrow guy. The other one is Spectrum. Mm-hmm. What did you think of her in this? Because here she has all kinds of crazy powers, but they wrote her as having doubts about her ability to control her powers.
I felt like we didn't get enough of her. She felt like an afterthought in this story to me. It felt like when she would pop up, it's oh, there she is again. I forgot she was here, which is a shame.
They'd have her doing stuff, but her inner monologue, instead of "I'm going to save the day" or "I'm going to try my best," was "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing."
Yeah,
which I thought was odd.
That's depth.
Yeah. Like we were saying before, heroes just can't be heroic anymore for some weirdo reason.
Nope.
And then the other one, her inner monologue was, "I want to be an Avenger," was pretty much all I got out of this. That was Voyager, who was, oh gosh, who did she belong to? Do you remember?
I haven't the foggiest idea who Voyager was. I don't know where she came from. I don't know what she does. I don't know if she has
She opens
powers.
portals.
Okay, so she has powers. I don't know anything about Voyager. She just strikes me as someone who would like be on like Mark Waid's Champions or like the Bendis Young Justice or something. Just a character.
Well, that's what I mean. She was with. I'm trying to find it in the book here. She's with somebody who was involved with Champions. I want to the Grand Master, maybe. Okay, yeah. I don't know if you remember me. I am Voyager, daughter of Endwi Gas, the Grand Master, and you are needed. This is at the beginning of the book.
Okay.
So, and her whole thing is, I wanted to be an Avenger. That's it. That's what she brought to the table, and she opens portals.
I feel like every new young character Marvel's introduced in the past 15 years has been that character.
All right, let's talk about the villain here, the Queen of the Night. Was she anything to you, or was she just another... Like, we need somebody who can kill gods. I don't know. What might kill the gods? I don't know. Somebody who can control the night.
I was hoping that this was going to be Marlena Evans from Days of Our Lives, who was Stefano's Queen of the Night briefly when she was under his mind control. But no, this felt, these God stories are kind of and I mean, I hate being quite this negative, but this one really has nothing to do with this book in general. I never been able to get into the stories of like the gods. New Teen Titans is one of my very favorite books out there. Anytime they'd go to Paradise Island or they would deal with where Donna Troy would deal with the gods, I checked out. I just couldn't do it. Anytime the Thor as Guardian stories, don't do it for me. Anytime you see Hela or someone with like antlers on their head, it loses it for me. So when we opened this up and that was going to be the crux of the story, I knew I was in for a tougher time. That said, I mean, if this was a character or a setting that I could be more engaged with, I might have liked the story more overall, but the God setting just doesn't do it for me. And even in the best of times, under the best of pencils and word processors, it just doesn't do it for me.
Her powers, see, the problem with this character was it seemed like she was whatever the story needed her to be in that moment, and she was powered up or powered down depending on what they needed to do from one page to the next.
100%.
So she's a poorly defined villain, and of course she looks humanoid, because of course everyone's humanoid in these books. And, she had unlike Darkseid War, which made zero sense to me, at least this one, she was getting revenge for having been locked away.
Have you guys done Darkseid War?
We have.
Oh, because I love Darkseid War.
It's given way to a lot of memes on this show.
I almost cried reading an issue of Darkseid War. I loved Darkseid War.
Oh, okay. We fucking hated it. I believe that's where I yelled out, "Doesn't anyone rob a bank anymore?"
Oh man, there was the one issue where they came back from Convergence, it was in the middle of Convergence because it was under a delay because it was Jeff Johns writing it and everything he writes gets delayed very long. And it was the issue where they finally told us that everything happened. It opened up with like images of Crisis and images of 0 Hour, and I was like, holy shit, it's back. And I almost shed a tear because the New 52 was a rough time.
All right, so our so our story ends. The bad guy gets all the shards. She gets all the Infinity Stones. She gets all the MacGuffins. Vision, but there's this house. Did you get the thing with the house?
Okay.
Okay.
Now,
hang
have
on,
you guys read?
Before you say anything, all right. So there's this inner monologue by Hercules. We must follow Nyx. Nyx is the Queen of the Night.
The Queen of the Night.
But it's as if the force of all creation were holding us fast against us. My friends and I soldier forth, but every step feels 1,000 years long, and we are not eternal, none of us. Mortals fade, as will I in time, but not today, not before one last labor. I have the door. If I can keep it from closing, keep even the smallest cracks of light, it is still open to us. Vision, do you hear me? The door is still open. I am Hercules, son of Zeus. I hear you, old friend. Monica, I'm giving you all I have, Vision. I was born of a... Jesus Christ. I was born of a combination of reality and myth. Thus a legend, a man made of stories. This is still Hercules. But here and now, in the face of the end, the legend feels hollow. I would rather be myself. All right, let me stop there, because I forgot to mention this earlier, and then we can come back to what I was reading here. So Hercules' thing that he's dealing with, at the beginning of the book, he's trying to be humble Hercules. Like, do good because doing good is the best thing kind of Hercules, and don't be boastful. Don't be the Hercules of legend. Be a newer, woker Hercules. And so by the end of this book, though, he's like, I just need to be myself.
Yeah.
Did you get that? And because I feel like that's how that's him in the beginning. And then right there at the end, he brings it up again. But like in the middle of the book, none of that's there. Like, he's not really dealing with that struggle. It's true. Just reacting to what's going on.
In the moment.
They just kind of drop it. Anything about Hercules real quick?
No, not really.
Okay.
Everything you said was right on the money there. Yeah, that was... I haven't... It really sucks because I haven't read much Marvel for the past little while here. So when last I left these characters, they were very, very different. So so this is kind of an education for me, as well as trying to reconcile like what is in character, what isn't quite in character, what is a change in character, what is supposed to be there. So any of the aberrations in characterization, I've just taken as my own ignorance.
I would love to see like a Disney Plus series now of Hercules. Like we need to see him in a movie, and then have at the end of that movie him realize that being boastful Hercules of legend doesn't really work in 2020. So the Disney Plus series is woke Hercules, and him struggling with trying to live in this world, and he's like terrible with with modern women. And it's just,
he could be Steve Sanders from the BH 90210 remake.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm looking for here. All right, so Hercules continues. I have often wondered which of the many stories will endure. I now know that there is only one that matters. And here we see a panel of Vision phasing through Hercules, going into this mysterious magic house. That when Did
you get the house?
No, I thought it was Doctor Strange's fucking.
It's Jack Kirby's house.
Yeah, it's Jack Kirby's house.
It is. I'm almost 100% sure that it's supposed to be Jack Kirby's house.
That when the time came, I gave all, not to be the hero, the legend, but just to help. Godspeed, Vision. Fight well. Or if you fail, then all the stories are done. All right, so that's the end of that issue. And the next issue opens up with the Vision having Bugs Bunny powers. Do you remember the Bugs Bunny? I can't. If Alexis Hanaway here, she would know the name of it. It's like Duck Amuck or something like that, where Bugs Bunny is. We find out Daffy Duck is beholden to whoever's holding the pen, and he's and they keep changing scenery on him.
Oh yes, yeah, okay, yeah, and he's like erasing his leg, and
okay. So somehow Vision got that power. And so he's talking to Nyx, This goes on forever.
It does.
And then Vision's like, here's all the heroes. And so all the heroes show up in a giant splash page. Several giant splash pages.
Yep.
She just brings all the heroes from
Marvel.
From Marvel across
corner.
all the ages, yeah. Just every iteration of Wolverine. Everybody.
Yep. The Silver Age X-Men were there. Adam Warlock's there. Everybody shows up.
Man-Thing, Silver Surfer, Ghost Rider. We get all
Bishop from 1991.
Yep. The House of Ideas. Hang on, I'm actually going to read this. So what sets this up is going back a few pages. So him and Nyx are having this discussion as all fights begin. Okay. I am not playing out Sorry, am I not playing out the role that was written? Will creation deny what is set in motion? No. There have been many endings. Do they all just sit in a circle and jerk each other off when they write these things?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
Yes, I am almost positive. Yes.
I just feel like they just smoke pot and just write shit they remembered from the philosophy class they took in college.
This is what is it? What is that subreddit? I am 14 and this is deep.
Yeah.
That's this.
This will be another. Your world of heroes isn't special. I disagree, says the Vision. And I think my role here is to save it. And she says, you? How can you stop me? How can you do anything but watch? I am mankind's first darkness. I am midnight and moonrise. I am a primal being, greater than gods. What are you? A synthetic man, no more. But I have heard stories and I have been a part of them. My database contains the Avengers files. A history of every hero, every Marvel who ever fought against the darkness. And here in this house of ideas. See, this is very fourth wall. This is supposed to be meta, I think.
Yeah, you can almost tell that this entire book, this entire 200 and odd pages that preceded this, were written to lead up to him calling this the House of Ideas.
I find myself wondering, how would they stop you? And then he narrates as all of these various iterations of Marvel teams.
Yep, Captain America jumps off the cover of Captain America Comics #1, and instead of punching Hitler, he punches Nix.
Yep.
We have a pastiche of Marvel Comics #1 where the Human Torch comes out of comes at that 45-degree angle. It's very 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 fan wanky.
Yeah.
It's if the story that preceded it wasn't what it was, it might have actually meant something.
Well, Mr. Sheehan, creation comes from light, not darkness. Do you get that? Do you understand that? Creation.
Oh.
Darkness is an ending. Do you understand? It is the shuddering of ideas. Light is the beginning. The light of inspiration. The light of the human spirit. This is the ending of the book, people. Yep. The light of the human spirit. Forever mightier than your narcissism and cynicism. And she says, never, because that's what all evil people say. They all say never. And then Vision says, always. You plan to impose your own rules upon reality. What? But the plan and fundamental flaw. This reality isn't about rules. It's about finding and fanning the spark of the courage of the darkest... Oh, Jesus Christ, this just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
You cannot win here. You're playing against the house. The house of ideas. The fantastic. The astonishing. And get it? Because when he says the fantastic, it's the Fantastic Four. The astonishing, which is the X-Men. The amazing, there's a picture of Spider-Man.
Yep.
There's your picture of Captain America. Instead of punching Hitler, he's punching Nix.
Yep.
All right, and so...
Did you guys ever cover Dark Knight Metal on the show?
No.
Okay, no.
Hard pass.
That was a story from a few years ago. They're doing a sequel right now, Death Metal, that I'm buying and not reading because that's kind of what I do these days. But at the end of Metal, it was all about this nth metal. It was all about these mystic metals, and at the end of it, there was one line that said because at the end of the day, we're all a little bit metal. And I could picture Scott Snyder sitting there throwing up the horns, yeah, that's this whole goddamn story. I wanted to say that line. This House of Ideas thing feels very much like that.
Yep, and it's the House of Ideas that finally kills her, and then Vision walks through the door, and now he's not dying anymore.
And he's fine now. He's doing good.
Hooray!
Yeah.
So, I have nothing else to say about this book. I gave it 3 stars.
Out of
5.
Oh.
And I tend to judge less. I tend to judge a little less harshly than maybe some others. I didn't want to. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't great. It wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It was just there. There, yeah. No,
as much shit as I've thrown at it, the past little while. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. I would never read it again.
No,
but But I mean, you know, nothing really to get mad about, I suppose, even though I have for the past little while.
No, that's the thing. It's one of those inoffensive. It definitely feels like it was an idea in need of a story. They got together and they were like, what if we did a bunch of pages of the heroes across the age defeating a single enemy? Like, oh, that's cool sounding. How are we going to get there? I don't know, but let's throw Conan in there.
Let's get there. Yeah. Let's throw Conan in there too. Oh, because we need those. We need the comic speculating apps on people's phones to start pinging. So let's get Conan in there.
So I'm going to give you the final word here. I'm going to say that overall it was an average, meh, there, fine. I know Chris Bailey hates it when I say this, but this really was just fine. It was fine. It was an average read. I read it Sunday morning, and when I was done, I put up my kids' 2-foot swimming pool, and I watched boxing. It did not stay. It stayed with me long enough for me to do this show, and it's immediately going to leave my head. I'll give you the final word.
It was just there. I don't think that this, and I mean, this is not the fault of this book. It's more a fault of just the way the industry is going now. This didn't need 10 parts. This didn't need 250 pages. This could have been told so much quicker and so much better using less pages, because the more you linger on it, the more apparent it is that the story is like a thread. You know, there's just not a whole heck of a lot here, and every time it looked like they were gonna actually go down a rabbit hole of characterization, they stopped short.
Yeah.
So it was like trying to master all things and didn't master any. Unfortunately, it did everything poorly or subparly, where it could have been a great action story if they would have went with it. It could have been a great character story if they would have went with it. They didn't do either. They tried doing both, and it just... I mean, if I was reading this during the time, what would have made me want to come back? Why would I have wanted to pick up the next issue? I just don't. It really didn't do anything for me. And again, a lot of this is my own ignorance, because I don't know these characters as much as I used to, or I don't know this version of these characters like I used to know the real versions of these characters. But yeah, it just didn't move the needle for me one way or another. I got mostly heated because of the very soft creative team.
All right, that takes us to the end of our show. The next time you will hear myself and Chris Sheehan, we'll be joined by Al Sedano, and we'll be talking New Mutants, the Demon Bear saga.
Something good.
That's going to be August 31st. And then we're going to do an extra source material on September 2nd. We're going to have Bill and Ted Save the Universe, and I'm going to be joined by Alexis Haina. So just the way the schedule ended up with New Mutants and Bill and Ted all in the same week. So we figured we'd do 2 shows for you. So you'll have movie reviews. Movies are opening up again, thank God. And AMC is saying that they're going to reopen movie theaters August 20th. So Bill and Ted Face the Music, which is going to debut both VOD and in theaters, will be the 28th. New Mutants, which is only going to be in theaters, comes out the 28th. So to celebrate that, we've got 2 source materials for you. One with myself and Al Sedano, and Chris Sheehan, the Demon Bear saga, and then one with myself and Alexis Haina, Bill and Ted Save the Universe. In September, we've got Batman Dark Victory, which is going to be September 14th. Kingsman Volume 1, September 21st. And Stars and Stripes by Jeff Johns will be, that's issues 1 through 6. And that'll be September 28th. So we hope you'll join us for those shows. In the meantime, last week, we did a reaction to the Kentucky Fried Movie, which was a lot of fun. Myself and Jesse Starcher reviewed the Clutch concert from their practice space, the Doom Saloon, live from the Doom Saloon, Volume 2. And Cole Marentet and I reviewed the first of 3 mini-series from the Transformers War for Cybertron, Siege. Those are all up in the archives. Tomorrow we'll be recording a TV party for season 1 of the Amazon Prime series Upload, and we'll be doing a Metal Hammer of Doom for Avatar Hunter Gatherer. Chris Sheehan, what do you got going on?
Oh, find me at chrisisoninfiniteearths.com every day. Sort of in a back and forth sort of a situation now. I'm still putting out content every day, but I've shifted over to do more Marvel stuff. If you are familiar with the site, you'll know last year I spent a lot of time doing Action Comics Weekly every single day for like 10 months. Right now, I've shifted over to do Marvel Comics Presents, the anthology series, and doing a story from that every day with a compilation post at the end of the week. Also sharing various audio offerings over there, including Morituri Mondays, which is every Monday, and also the last 5 episodes of Chris and Reggie's Cosmic Treadmill, which will be airing for the next 5 or 4 Sundays, because the first one aired just this weekend. And these are going to be the spicier episodes, where if you listen to this week's, you'll be able to listen to me and Reggie play out a scene of finger banging. So there's that. That's a Cherry Pop-Tart #1. It was a very, very uncomfortable recording, and even more uncomfortable re-listening to it. We've got other books like Omaha the Cat Dancer, which is, a furry porn. There's also Wally Wood's Gangbang, which is basically a lot of old newspaper strips in very, very dirty situations. And also the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers, which is kind of a stoner, kind of a druggy kind of book from the underground days. So we have those coming up, and then there'll be the final episode of the Cosmic Treadmill, which will be coming out, I believe, on the 13th of September, if that's a Sunday, either the 12th or 13th, whichever one is a Sunday. And that one is going to be a very old recording that Reggie and I did together about going on 5 years ago. One of the first things we ever did together, which was in sort of the vein of what the Cosmic Treadmill ultimately became. So I'm going to be sharing that with many of you for the very first time, and that'll also be a sort of a celebration of the show. And I put out a few videos about what I'm looking to do with this show, so those are floating around out there. It's just I want people who like the show to maybe reach out and tell me why they like the show. Just this has been a very hard process to put this, put a bow on this. So I'm trying to find any way possible to make it a little bit less sad. And I figure if I surround myself with people who enjoyed it, or just enjoyed Reggie and my partnership, or might be just happy to see it go away, it'd be nice for people to reach out and maybe share their thoughts with the audience, just to remain in perpetuity in the very final episode of this program. So there's that. That's me, and I'm on Twitter at Ace Comics, and I can guarantee you're not blocked.
Very good, sir. Well, always love having you, and looking forward to talking Demon Bear with you and Al Sedano in 2 weeks. All right, so this has been Source Material Live. Jesse, we love you. We miss you. Be well, be safe, and behave.